Hey everybody, I'm Christopher Green. You're tuning into AMTV, Alternative Media Television. So Elliot Rodgers, son of Peter Rodgers, assistant director to Hollywood blockbuster films like Hunger Games, goes on a shooting rampage over Memorial Day weekend and proceeds to kill a bunch of innocents. All because the kid can't get laid and he's got massive blue balls.
I don't know why you girls are so repulsed by me. It doesn't make sense. I do everything I can.
And he puts out this diatribe, as do all these killers looking for fame and fortune in Hollywood, these spoiled little brat rich kids driving black murdered out BMWs, opening fire on innocents in a peaceful Santa Barbara area of town. And people fail to ask the logical questions. What could perhaps drive some kind of elitist kid to carry out these tragic events? And, you know, Hollywood fails to point a finger at violence in their films. Most notably over the weekend, Seth Rogen, who's a part and plays roles, multi-million-dollar roles that he's paid for, in films that glamorize sex, drugs, rock and roll, and violence, blasts a Hollywood critic for suggesting that Hollywood actually promotes this kind of shit. You know, movies like Quentin Tarantino's Pulp Fiction and Django Unchained, where they go around murdering a bunch of people and there's blood splattering on the screen, and honestly, totally brainwashing our children. You know, creating an environment where they think the blood, the guts, and the gore is somehow normal. You know, it's interesting because in this particular case, not only is this kid, Elliot Rodger, autistic, and there's correlation with all these other mass killers, notably people like Adam Lanza and the Batman Massacre killer, and all these tragedies that, by the way, didn't even happen a few years ago, didn't even happen 10, 20, 30 years ago, or 50 years ago. It just seems to be happening now. You know, kids living out these misogynistic fantasies of murder because they can't get laid. And then videotaping themselves, putting themselves on YouTube. The kid's own parents suggesting to the cops they think he might do something violent and murderous, and the cops writing it off saying he's a normal quote-unquote kid and going back to eat their donuts. But what really pisses me off is people like Seth Rogen, these Hollywood actors that make $20 million a film, or something like that, right off their films, and blast critics that suggest that it could potentially be Hollywood violent sex drugs that may be leading these kids to commit these kinds of heinous acts. Again, none of this shit used to happen 10 or 20 or 30 years ago. It only happens now. And the question is why? Does it have anything to do with autism? Are people just more nuts? Are they more crazy? Can they not handle their parents' divorce, as is the case with Elliot? You know, and back to Elliot's father, Peter himself, who is the assistant director to Hunger Games, one of the most successful Hollywood films and platforms in the world today, which is literally about a bunch of kids his son's age killing each other, literally going on murder rampages in a survival of the fittest Darwinian episode of violence. Yet nobody points a finger at Hollywood specifically. Nobody points a finger at video games, for example, Halo, which Peter's son loved to play. No one points a finger at these things. You know, it's not that these things are specifically the cause in isolation, but they certainly play a role. Blowing people up and killing people in a virtual reality, Oculus Rift environment can't be good for our children. Equipping them with iPads when they're infants and toddlers, and using it to pacify them so they shut the F up, isn't necessarily a good idea. But it's exactly what we do in our culture. And it's exactly why these kids go on these misogynistic murder rampages, because they've got severe blue balls. And they think the world somehow owes them something. This sense of entitlement. You know, being the son of this famous Hollywood director. And it's very sad, it's tragic for all the innocent lives lost. All these kids, the men, women, and children, everybody that's going to suffer as a result of this idiotic, stupid, disease-minded child who got some crazy idea randomly. We don't want to blame Hollywood films, of course, or violent video games. Got the idea to go on a murder rampage that honestly looks like the same movies that his dad produces. I'm Christopher Green. You've been tuning into AMTV, Alternative Media Television, hard-hitting it in your face. Get this video out everywhere, make it viral, and click the link below and share it everywhere.